Welcome back. Coach Lochlainn here, and today you'll learn how to create your own flows even if you only know a few Steel Mace movements, because we're using the same 3 exercises to create 3 different flows by changing only one thing in each flow to make it more challenging than the last. We'll be covering pivots, handwork, and footwork, and most importantly, you'll learn how to think. So grab your mace and let's flow. All 3 flows today use the same 3 movements, the shield, arrow, and uppercut. These are amazing movements, and if you'd like to learn the proper technique for each, you can watch the video I've linked at the end of this one. Now for the first variant of this flow, we are simply going to be doing these exercises in order and then switching to the other side. So I'll show you what that looks like. So from warrior stance, one hand rises, opposite leg steps out, lateral lunge, and then I'll pull the mace in and pivot, shield. Bring the mace in, push off the back leg, arrow. Should be nice and stable here, palm facing up, and then I'll step back into my lateral lunge. From here, I will curl the head of the mace up, palm faces out, slides up, grabs in an over grip, drop it down, and uppercut. Next, I'll push the tail up, slide the hand palm facing out, and flip the mace back over to return to the lateral lunge. And then I'll just switch to the other side. So prayer switch in the middle, now shield. So pull in, pivot, shield. Bring it in, push off the back leg, arrow. Step back, lateral lunge, pull the mace up, palm faces out, uppercut. Bringing the tail up, palm faces out once more and flip the mace over. And I'll do one more on each side. So prayer switch to the mace, shield. Bring it in, push off, arrow. Back down, palm brings the mace up, pivot into your uppercut. Tail points up, palm faces out, flip the mace back over, and then prayer switch to the other side. Last one, pivot, shield, bring it in, arrow. Back down, mace comes up, palm faces out, uppercut. Tail goes up, palm faces out, flip the mace over, and there you go, you can push back to warrior stance. So this is our first variant. Very cool, very simple though. It's only those 3 exercises in order, and we're only moving in 2 directions. Our next variant will spice things up with a small change that makes a big impact, moving us into 3 directions. The small change we're making to this flow has a 180-degree of difference, literally. By simply inversing the order of the exercises, we now will finish the flow on the other side. So instead of moving in 2 directions, we will now be moving in 3. So here's what this second flow looks like. Now, like I said, we are going to be inversing the order. So instead of doing shield, arrow, uppercut, we're going to do uppercut, arrow, shield. So a little bit different, and here we go. So both hands bottom of the mace, one hand at the top of the mace in just the same way, step out in the same lateral lunge. Next, I'm going to start with the uppercut by pulling the mace up, palm slides up the mace facing out, pivot in that over grip, and uppercut. Now next is the arrow. So I'll flip the tail up, just like we did earlier, palm facing out, grabs hold. I'm gonna flip the mace all the way around, push off, and arrow. And then next, I will bring the mace across my body, plant my back leg, and pivot across into a front lunge the other direction, into a shield. And then I'm going to switch to the other side. So I'm going to bring the shield down, prayer switch as I do so, and finish in a lateral lunge on the other side. Same thing, so uppercut, palm out, pivot, uppercut. Tail points up, palm faces out, spin the mace, push off the back leg, arrow. From here, plant the back leg as you move the mace across your body and shield. And then switch. So I'll bring the mace in, prayer hands top of the mace, and bring it back down to lateral lunge. And we'll do one more on each side. So uppercut, palm faces out, tail flips over, palm facing out, spin the mace, push off the back leg, and then I'll plant the back leg, move the mace across my body, front lunge, shield. Slide the hands up the mace, prayer switch. One more. Switch the mace, palm out, uppercut. Tail points up, palm out, Flip the mace over, arrow. Plant the back leg, move the mace across your body, front lunge, shield, and switch down. And then you can push back to warrior stance. So that is our second variant. And the important takeaway is this. We did the same 3 exercises. The only thing we changed was the order. And by changing the order, it allowed us to break into a new direction. After the arrow, we could literally come across our whole body and push into a shield. And you'll also notice that the way that we switched sides from the first flow went simply from a prayer switch to go from one side to the other at the end of each flow. And then in this one, we went from the shield directly, like this, directly into a lateral lunge with that prayer switch. So we've actually integrated switching sides in the flow directly into the flow itself. This is a little bit of a nuanced idea, but it's very powerful as you craft your flows. And now here's where things get fun, because in the third variant, we're keeping the exercises the same, we're keeping the order of exercises the same, but we're changing the footwork, which makes a world of difference. The third flow is my favorite, and that is because we are adding a footwork component that greatly spices up this flow, specifically in the form of a pivot. So even though we have the same exercises as the first flow, the same order of exercises as the second flow, we are now going to be changing the footwork, which will require, again, the rest of our flow to adapt. And this is the critical key. If you take nothing else away from this video, it's this. The way to create a flow and to change it is to change one single part of it and let everything else adapt. You can only change one tiny thing at a time in order to actually understand its total impact on how that flow is created. And the more that you understand each of these tiny changes and how it makes everything else adapt, then you will understand the nuance of how to create any flow at any time with any movement. So that's the critical idea, and here's how it's applied. So for this third variant, I'll come back to warrior stance, bring one hand top of the mace once more, step out again, into lateral lunge. Now, same order of exercises. I'm gonna start with my uppercut. So uppercut, palm out, pivot, push the tail up to go into the arrow, palm faces out, spin the mace and push it out. Now here's the difference. I'm going to add a pivot. So I'm going to push the mace to the side, prayer switch, plant my leg, and then drop down, lateral lunge. And then here's my shield. This is the last exercise. I'm gonna pull the mace in, pivot, and shield. And then from here, you can drop it back down, and then pull the mace up to initiate your uppercut once more. Again, push the tail up, palm grabs, back leg comes up into your arrow, and then I'll push the tail around, prayer switch and pivot, and fall back into this lateral lunge. And then I'll pull the mace in, pivot, and shield. Back in, and now we're ready for the uppercut once more. So uppercut, push the tail over into your arrow, plant the foot as you prayer switch the mace laterally, pull the mace in, pivot, shield, back down, pull the mace up, palm out, uppercut, push the tail over, palm out, back leg comes up, back leg drops as I do my prayer switch and pivot. And from here, I'll pull the mace in, shield. Return back to the lateral lunge, and you can push back to your warrior stance. So you saw in that third variant how I changed that one thing, the footwork, and everything else had to adapt. Exercises were the same, the order was the same, but then because I had that pivot, I had to use different hand work, and the actual way that the exercises showed up was different. So again, that same idea applied. Change one thing, let everything else adapt. And that is how you create a new flow. Now imagine what you could do if you had 10 times this number of exercises. Instead of 3, you had 30. Imagine the flows and workouts that you could create. It'd be incredible. Learning these exercises often takes a lot of time, but it doesn't have to. I've designed a program to bring the learning curve from years down to weeks, and it's exactly what I wish I had back when I started Mace Flow training 5 years ago. To learn and master the most essential drills, get access to my 8-week Mace Flow training program, which provides all of the tutorials and workouts you need to optimize how you use your mace. Click the link in the description below to get access now, and may the mace be with you.